The wagon vanished before Lenora Whitcomb learned she had been delivered to the wrong man. One moment, its rear lantern swung between the snow-dark pines. The next, the storm swallowed it, leaving only the creak of wheels fading down a road already filling behind them. Lenora stood on the porch of Blue Roan Ranch, with one gloved hand gripping the handle of her trunk, and the other closed around the brass compass her father had carried for 20 years. The needle pointed north. It had not warned her that every direction she had been given was false. Wind drove snow beneath the porch roof and pressed her green wool shawl against her throat. Ellis Greer had followed the route written in the Cinder Mesa stage office book. Take the west road past the split cottonwood beside the well, turn at the gate marked with 2 iron shoes, stop at the house with the blue-painted porch. Rail, he had found every landmark. He had also refused to wait. Roads going under, he had shouted while lowering her trunk. I stay, I lose the team. Then he had climbed back to the seat and left her beneath a stranger's roof on the evening of December 22nd, 1889. Lenora lifted her hand to knock. The door opened before her knuckles touched the wood. The man who stood there was broad through the shoulders, bareheaded despite the cold, and nothing like the face she had made from Vernon Dake's letters. She had imagined a lean man with an easy smile because the sentences sounded easy. This man had a stillness that did not invite invention. His dark shirt sleeves were rolled once at the forearms. Lamplight caught a pale scar near one wrist. He took in the trunk, the shawl, the snow collecting on her hat, and the empty road behind her. His attention returned to her face. "You're Vernon Dake," Lenora said. The man did not answer at once, not because he was confused, because he understood the cost of the next words. "No, Mom." His voice was low and plain. "My name is Harlan Beckett." The wind struck the porch hard enough to rattle the blue rail. Lenora held the trunk handle tighter. "This is Blue Roan Ranch." "It is. You own it." "I do." She pulled one of Vernon's letters from inside her coat, keeping the folded page against her palm. He said the cottonwood stood beside the well. He said the front rail was painted blue because his mother liked color in winter. He described the north barn, the creek bed, and the ridge behind the house. Harlan's gaze moved to the paper, but not his hands. "My uncle painted that rail before I owned the place. My mother never saw Colorado." Lenora heard the truth before she accepted it. Too many details aligned around the wrong man. Vernon Dake wrote that he owned this ranch. He didn't. He wrote that. He was waiting for me. Harlan looked past her toward the road, as though a man might emerge from the white dark and make the situation sensible. No one did. "I never sent for a bride," he said. The words should have embarrassed her. Instead, they cleared the air. She was cold, stranded, and deceived. But she would not help anyone reduce her to foolishness. "I was not asking whether you wanted one." A faint tension left his jaw. "No, Mom." "And I was not delivered." "No. I was misdirected. That's what it appears." He stepped back from the doorway, not far enough to suggest she must enter, far enough to leave the threshold open. "The road to Cinder Mesa is disappearing. Bitter Wash is farther north, and the branch will be worse. You can come inside until the weather breaks, or I can stand here while you decide. But I won't send you back into that storm." Lenora studied the room behind him. A lamp burned on a square table. A rifle rack stood on the far wall, the weapons upright and out of reach from the door. The house looked spare rather than neglected. No woman's bonnet, no child's shoes, no evidence of the life Vernon had promised. "Where is Vernon Dake?" "He worked here 4 months last year." "Doing what?" "Fence repair. Feeding stock when a hand was sick." Complaining about both. Why did he leave? Harlan's eyes settled on the folded letter again. "That answer can wait until you're out of the wind. It can wait. It cannot disappear. It won't." The certainty was not warm, but it held. Lenora glanced toward the road once more. Snow had erased the wagon tracks nearest the porch. The compass at her palm pointed north toward Bitter Wash and the man whose name had carried her across half the country. Yet the storm had made direction less important than distance. Bitter Wash might be 10 miles away or 50. Tonight it was unreachable. "If I enter," she said, "the front room is mine." Harlan nodded toward a closed door off the parlor. "It has a lock on the inside. You do not enter without permission." "I won't." My trunk stays with me. Yes, and this does not decide what happens tomorrow. Nothing else is being decided tonight. Lenora crossed the threshold. Harlan did not reach for her arm. He waited until she cleared the door, then closed it against the storm. Warmth from the stove reached her in uneven waves, making her fingers ache as feeling returned. She placed the compass inside her coat and set the letter on top of the trunk without unfolding it. Harlan remained near the door. "May I carry that to the front room?" he asked. "You may carry the trunk, not the letter." "Understood." He bent, lifted the trunk with both hands, and took it into the small room she had seen from the entry. He set it beside the narrow bed rather than near the window. The door held a simple iron bolt and a key in the inside lock. Harlan tested neither. He pointed to a second door beyond the kitchen. "That goes to the yard. I'll use it when I leave." "Leave for where?" "Bunkhouse." Lenora looked toward the snow, hammering the windows. "You intend to sleep outside the house?" "Across the yard. This is your house. Tonight the locked room is yours. The rest will be easier if I'm not on the other side of the wall." The answer was practical. That made it more persuasive than gallantry. Lenora removed her wet gloves one finger at a time. "Mr. Beckett, did Vernon ever speak about St. Louis?" "No." "Did he mention a woman who kept accounts?" Harlan went still. "Once." "What did he ask?" "Whether a bookkeeper could tell when freight had been charged but never received." The cold inside Lenora no longer came from the storm. Vernon had praised her intelligence in his third letter. By the fifth, he had asked whether she understood duplicate invoices. By the seventh, he had written that a capable wife could save a rancher from mistakes other men never noticed. She had believed he respected her work. Perhaps he had only measured its usefulness. Harlan opened the back door. Snow rushed briefly into the kitchen. Before stepping out, he looked at the letter resting on her trunk. "Did he send for a wife, Miss Whitcomb?" Lenora faced the locked room. "The false ranch and the road buried beyond the blue rail. That is what I crossed the country to find out." Harlan pulled the door closed behind him, leaving her with the key, the storm, and a larger question than the one that had brought her west. The question remained after Harlan's footsteps disappeared across the yard. Lenora slid the iron bolt into place and tested it once. The door held. No hand tried the latch from the other side. Wind worried the corners of the house, driving snow against the windows in dry handfuls. She stood with her back to the door until the ache in her fingers became sharper than the fear in her thoughts. Then she moved. The front room was narrow but clean. A washstand held a white basin, a pitcher, and a folded cloth. The bed had one quilt and a heavy wool blanket. A straight-backed chair stood beside the window. No flowers, no lace. No attempt to make a stranger believe the room had been prepared for a bride. Lenora set Vernon's letter inside her trunk and turned the key. The brass compass came next. She placed it on the washstand, where the lamp caught the worn scratches on its case. Her father had used it on delivery roads outside St. Louis, though he always said, "A compass could only tell a person where north lay. It could not tell whether the road was honest." A knock sounded from the kitchen. Not the front room door, farther away. "Miss Whitcomb?" An older man called. "Name's Ibn Cole. I've brought supper." Lenora crossed the parlor, but stopped before entering the kitchen. Harlan stood outside the open back door, with snow collecting across his shoulders. He had turned his face toward the yard. Ibn, a white-mustached man with a lined face, placed a tray on the table between them. Beef broth, potatoes, cornbread wrapped in cloth. A clean flannel shirt lay folded beside a second blanket. "Mr. Beckett said your things might not dry by morning," Eben said. "I'll leave these here, thank you." "You're welcome." He did not stare at the trunk or ask why she had come. He took the empty space beside Harlan, and both men waited beyond the threshold. Lenora understood. They would not enter while she stood alone in the house. "Mr. Beckett," she said. Harlan turned only enough to hear her. "Yes?" "You said," Vernon asked, whether a bookkeeper could find a charged delivery that never arrived. "He did." "When?" "Last winter, near the end of his time here." "Was a delivery missing then?" "No." "Did he ask about any particular merchant?" "Not that I remember." His answer came without haste, but not without thought. He asked whether a ranch could carry the same feed charge twice without the bank noticing until renewal. Lenora's hands went cold again. Vernon's fourth letter had asked whether duplicate invoices were common in wholesale trade. She had answered that honest mistakes occurred, but repeated errors usually favored the person controlling the books. His next letter had praised her judgment. At the time, she had read admiration. Now she heard examination. Did he know Blue Roan's accounts? She asked. Not enough to keep them, but enough to see them. Harlan looked toward the dark yard. He swept the office twice, repaired a loose window latch, carried merchant mail in from the road when he was sent to the gate. So the answer is yes. The answer is he had opportunities. I can't say what he read. Lenora nodded once. A man who separated fact from suspicion was either careful or practiced. She did not yet know which. Why did he leave? She asked. Eben's mustache shifted as his mouth tightened. Harlan answered. A silver bit disappeared from the tack room. Matthew found it in Vernon's bedroll. Was he arrested? No, why not? He returned it. I paid the wages he was owed and told him never to come back. Did you tell the merchants in Cinder Mesa? No. That answer cost him more than the others. Why? Because I thought removing him was enough. Was it? Harlan faced her then. Snow clung to his hair. No, Lenora let the admission stand without softening it for him. Is Bitter Wash his property? He occupies it. Bad roof, little water after August. I don't know whether the final filing is complete. And he wrote to me about a prosperous ranch. He wrote to you about mine. There was no triumph in the correction. Only anger kept under control. Lenora took the tray. Good night, Mr. Cole. Good night, miss. She looked at Harlan. I will speak with you in the morning. I'll wait until you send word. You do not need to stand in the snow until I close the door. No, then why are you? Harlan glanced toward the kitchen table. To make certain the food reached you without either of us entering. The answer was so practical that it left no room for gallantry. Lenora closed the door. No one tested it. She ate enough to stop trembling, changed into the flannel shirt, and hung her wet clothing near the stove. The green wool shawl had torn at one corner where the trunk buckle caught it. She took a small sewing case from her luggage and repaired the edge with uneven but serviceable stitches. Work steadied the hands. Order steadied the mind. Afterward, she brought out Vernon's letters and arranged them on the bed by date. 12 letters. The earliest spoke of loneliness, work, and a man's wish for a capable wife rather than a decorative one. The next described Blue Roan's cottonwood and ridge. Then came questions about invoices, duplicate freight charges, receiving signatures, a missing delivery concealed until a bank examined the books. Each question had appeared harmless because it was surrounded by hope. Lenora separated the pages into 2 stacks, courtship, business. By the time she finished, the business stack was thicker. She slept with the letters locked inside the trunk, the key beneath her pillow, and a chair set under the front room latch. Morning arrived gray and windless. Snow covered the lower window panes and buried the porch steps. When Lenora opened the front room door, the house remained empty. A fire had been laid but not lit in the parlor stove. Beside it sat kindling, matches, and a note in Harlan's square hand. Pantry is stocked. Desk and house keys are on the kitchen table. Use either if you choose. Lenora lit the stove herself. She left the house key untouched and carried the desk key to the table before sending Eben to ask Harlan in. Harlan entered through the kitchen, removed his hat, and stopped where she indicated. Lenora placed 3 selected letters between them. These describe Blue Roan, she said. Do not read beyond the marked lines. He obeyed. One letter named a preacher, Samuel Voss, who supposedly knew Vernon's character. Harlan had never heard the name in Cinder Mesa. Another cited a merchant, Aaron Bell. Harlan said Bell had left Colorado 2 years earlier. The third described the north barn, the dry creek, and the old branding stove beneath the office window. Every detail belonged to Harlan's ranch. He did not invent a prosperous life, Lenora said. He copied yours, yes, and he expected me to arrive believing he owned it. Yes. She drew a 4th letter from her pocket but kept it folded. Blue Roan has a missing delivery now? Maybe. Maybe is not a quantity. Harlan rested both hands on the chair back without sitting. The December merchant statement charges 2 wagon loads of baled hay. I remember ordering them. I don't remember receiving them. Who signs deliveries? Usually me. Sometimes Matthew Rourke. Do you keep the freight papers? In the office drawer. Have you checked? Not since the statement arrived. Why? Storm preparations. Sick cow. Fence down on the north line. He did not make the reasons sound more noble than they were. I thought the receiving paper would be with the December freight mail. Would be? Lenora repeated. Harlan's gaze shifted toward the locked desk. A small envelope came by stage on December 12th. Trinidad freight mark. I wrote Trinidad Freight December across it and put it in the lower drawer before riding north. Did you open it? No. Has anyone used the office since? Eben to tend the stove. Matthew for the cattle tally. No one should have opened the drawer. Should have is not the same as did not. No. Lenora wrapped her fingers around the desk key. The storm had not trapped her inside a stranger's house by accident alone. Vernon had sent her to the same name he had once studied, the same office he had entered, and perhaps the same account he had learned how to use. She rose. I want to see the envelope. Harlan did not reach for the key. Then you decide when the drawer opens. Lenora kept the desk key in her hand, but did not turn toward the office. Not yet, she said. Harlan's brows drew together. You asked to see the envelope. I asked because I needed to know whether it existed. Opening it is work. You crossed half the country and spent the night under my roof. I'd say you have reason enough. Reason is not an agreement. She placed the key beside the selected letters. If I examine your records, I become responsible for what I see and what I conclude. I will not begin that work as a stranded woman being repaid with information. Harlan studied her across the kitchen table. The stove clicked as iron settled around the heat. Outside, the storm had softened to a dry whisper against the windows. What would you begin it as? He asked. An employee. He pulled out the chair opposite her but remained standing until she sat. Then he took his own seat. All right, that is not a wage. No, he rested his forearms on the table. Before we discuss one, you need to know the choices I can offer. Lenora folded her hands. Offer them. First, when the road opens, I take you to Bitter Wash. You meet Vernon and decide for yourself whether any part of what he wrote is true. The thought of arriving at a poor homestead, beneath another man's gaze, tightened her stomach, but she did not reject the choice merely because she feared it. Second, I take you to Trinidad. You can use the railroad east or look for work there. And the third, you remain here for 2 weeks and examine the feed account, freight papers, and anything else tied to Vernon. I pay you. Harlan did not say the ranch needed her. He did not say she needed the ranch. That absence mattered. Why 2 weeks? She asked. Long enough to learn whether the December charge is a mistake or theft. Short enough that staying does not become a decision you never made. And if the roads remain closed, the term begins today. Travel waits until travel is safe. My lodging, part of the arrangement. Food, also part of it. Those are not wages. No, he named a weekly amount. It was less than she had earned in St. Louis, and more than she expected from a winter ranch under credit pressure. Lenora considered it without pretending modesty. Add a separate allowance for any journey required by the work. Done. I decide whether a journey is required. We decide together whether the ranch pays for it. You decide whether you go. Better. I need access to feed orders, freight papers, merchant statements, bank notices, cattle tallies, and any correspondence that mentions Vernon. You'll have it. No one opens my trunk or reads my private letters without permission. Agreed. The front room remains mine. Its lock remains on the inside. Agreed. You sleep in the bunkhouse until you choose otherwise or leave. Lenora met his eyes. Do not add choices I have not raised. Harlan absorbed the correction. I sleep in the bunkhouse. No one calls me your bride. No one will. And if I choose Bitter Wash after the work is complete, you do not treat that choice as betrayal. A harder line appeared around his mouth. Not anger at her. Resistance to the idea itself. I won't like it. That was not the condition. I won't call it betrayal, nor interfere unless I ask for help. Harlan's fingers closed once around the edge of the table, then released. If the road is safe and Vernon has made no threat you do not know about, I'll take you. That leaves too much judgment in your hands. Then I tell you every fact I know. You decide whether it is a threat. If you still choose to go, I provide the wagon. Lenora considered him. He had not surrendered concern. He had surrendered authority over her answer. Acceptable. Harlan rose, went to the small writing shelf, and returned with a stub of pencil and a clean sheet. We should write it. Not all agreements become stronger because they are written badly. Then write it well. Lenora did. She stated the term, wage, expenses, access, lodging, privacy, and her right to leave when travel was safe. Harlan read every line. This says employment creates no promise of marriage. It should. I agree. Sign below mine. He did. They had only one copy, so Lenora added that the original would remain in her locked trunk and that Harlan could make a copy when they reached Cinder Mesa or Trinidad. He signed the addition without complaint. Then she unlocked her trunk, placed the agreement beneath her letters, and turned the key. The desk key remained on the table. Now, Harlan said, do you want to open the freight drawer? Lenora glanced at the frost-clouded window. Not alone, I'll be there. You own the ranch and the account. That makes you interested, not neutral. I want witnesses when the envelope is opened. He nodded after only a brief pause. Matthew Rourke and Eben Cole. Tomorrow. First, I want to know whether the hay is missing or merely misplaced. By noon, the storm had broken enough for the yard to appear beneath a hard white sky. Harlan walked with Lenora to the bunkhouse, keeping half a pace to the side, rather than taking the cleared path and leaving her to struggle in the deeper snow. 6 men sat around the long table finishing coffee. Eben Cole looked up first. Matthew Rourke, a square-faced man with iron-gray hair at the temples, set down his cup. A younger hand near the stove grinned when he saw Lenora's mended green shawl. Christmas brought us a wife after all. The room tightened. Harlan's voice came level. Her name is Miss Whitcomb. She is a paid employee of Blue Roan for 2 weeks. Any man who cannot remember that may collect his wages and test the road on foot. The young hand's grin vanished. Harlan turned toward Lenora, leaving the insult where she could answer it rather than finishing the matter for her. I was misdirected, she said. I was not delivered. If you confuse the two again, I will assume your hearing is poor and your arithmetic worse. Eben covered a cough with one hand. Matthew's mouth moved near one corner. The young hand removed his hat. Yes, Mom. Miss Whitcomb will examine the winter feed account, Harlan continued. She has authority to inspect stores, receiving marks, tallies, and invoices. You answer her questions as you would mine. Not as you would his, Lenora corrected. Answer accurately, that will be enough. Matthew stood. I keep the feed tally. Then you are the first person I need. The north barn smelled of hay, leather, and cold wood. Matthew showed her the stacked bales, the loose feed bins, and the ration marks cut into a board near the door. His counts were orderly, but they relied on expected deliveries rather than physical totals. Lenora asked for a measuring rope, chalk, and the last 3 weeks of feeding notes. She did not tell him his system was wrong. She asked him to show her how each number had been made. By mid-afternoon, they had counted every full bale and estimated the open stacks by weight. The total fell far short of the merchant statement, not by a few days' feed, by 2 wagon loads. Matthew stared at the chalk figures on the barn door. That cannot be right. Then we count again, Lenora said. They did. The number remained. Harlan stood near the entrance, saying nothing until Matthew finished his second tally. How long? He asked. Lenora calculated from the current ration. At the present use, you fall short before the end of January. Sooner if another storm keeps the cattle near the feed ground. Harlan glanced toward the white hills beyond the barn. We'll need to reduce the ration. Not until we separate waste from need. Cutting blindly can cost more than hay. Matthew's attention sharpened. You know cattle? No, I know inventory. You know cattle. We will require both. The answer earned more respect than pretending competence she did not possess. As they crossed the yard, Lenora's boot slipped beside the trough. She caught the rail, but the brass compass swung free from beneath her coat. Its worn leather thong snapped. The compass dropped into the snow. Harlan reached it first, then stopped with his hand inches above the brass case. May I? He lifted it by the edge and brushed away the snow with his thumb. The case is sound. The leather was old. I have harness lace in the tack room. Lenora held out her palm. I can repair it. You can. Harlan placed the compass in her hand. Or I can cut a narrow strap and return it before supper. He had offered skill, not possession. Lenora, gave the compass back. Before supper. Before supper, he kept the promise. At dusk, the compass lay beside her plate on the kitchen table, secured to a new strip of dark harness leather, narrow enough for her wrist and strong enough to survive weather. Harlan did not wait to see whether she admired the work. He was already pulling on his coat for the bunkhouse. Lenora fastened the repaired compass and placed the desk key beside it. 2 wagon loads were missing. A sealed envelope waited in the lower drawer. Tomorrow, in front of witnesses, they would learn whether Vernon Dake had stolen only a rancher's name or had begun stealing from the life attached to it. By Christmas morning, Lenora had proved the hay was missing. What remained was the harder question. How long could Blue Roan survive without it? She stood in the north barn, with a chalked board, a measuring rope, and 3 days of feeding notes spread across an overturned crate. Frost silvered the inner planks. Beyond the open doors, cattle pressed close to the feed ground, their breath rising in pale clouds. Matthew Rourke watched her mark the first column. "You're counting waste as if cattle ask permission before trampling it," he said. "I am counting what disappears," Lenora replied. "You can tell me why." Matthew folded his arms. "Wind takes some. The weaker animals pull bales loose. Men spill feed when they hurry. Then we separate those losses from what the herd actually eats." She pointed to the row of figures. "For 3 days, each stack is marked before feeding. Open bales go in one section, spoiled hay in another. Every armload is weighed before it leaves the barn. That will slow 6 men before sunrise. So will running out in January." Matthew studied the board again. Harlan stood near the barn door, saying nothing. Lenora had expected him to settle the argument. Instead, he let the foreman decide whether her reasoning deserved respect. Matthew noticed it too. 3 days, he said at last. "If the cattle lose condition, we stop. If they lose condition, your judgment governs the ration. My work governs the count. Fair." The sandy-haired hand who had called her a Christmas wife approached with 2 coils of rope. He removed his hat before speaking. "Miss Whitcomb, yes, what I said yesterday was meaner than I intended. Intent does not make a sentence harmless." His ears reddened. "No, Mom, but an apology can keep a foolish sentence from becoming a habit." She took the smaller coil. "Thank you." Relief crossed his face. "Matthew says you want the stacks marked. Red chalk for spoiled hay, white for sound." He nodded and went to work without another attempt at humor. Harlan joined Lenora beside the crate. "You could have sent him out into the snow. Then I would lose a pair of hands and gain nothing. You accepted the apology. I accepted a correction. Those are not always the same thing." Harlan's gaze settled briefly on the repaired compass at her wrist. "No," he said, "they aren't." A shout came from the lower shed before she could answer. One of the men ran across the yard, boots sliding on the packed snow. "Mr. Beckett? Cow down in the calving pen. Matthew says the calves turned wrong." Harlan was moving before the sentence ended. Matthew followed. Lenora gathered the loose papers from the crate, so the wind would not take them. She had no business near a difficult berth. She knew invoices, stock lists, and quantities, not cattle. Then another hand called from the shed. "Bring more lamp oil, and clean cloth if there's any left." The pantry inventory rose in Lenora's mind as clearly as figures on a page. 2 full oil tins beneath the kitchen shelf. A bundle of boiled cloth in the blue chest. Warming crate stored behind the smokehouse wall, because Eben had complained it blocked his woodpile. "Eben," she called. "Hot water in the largest kettle. Not boiling." He looked up from the kitchen doorway. "For the cow? For hands and cloth. The calf will need warmth if it comes weak." She did not know that from ranching. She knew it from warehouse deliveries, from winter animals brought in half-frozen behind freight wagons, from watching practical men save life with heat before pride had time to interfere. She ran to the smokehouse, found the crate where her inventory notes said it would be, and dragged it through the snow until the sandy-haired hand took the other end. "Blanket?" he asked. "Bunkhouse shelf. The gray one with the torn corner. It is clean." They reached the calving shed as Harlan knelt behind the cow, sleeves rolled above his forearms. Matthew worked beside him, jaw clenched, the cow strained, exhausted. A small hoof showed, then vanished. "Lamp," Harlan said. Lenora raised it where Matthew directed. She did not speak over them. She held the light steady while Harlan and Matthew worked. The minutes lengthened. Sweat darkened Harlan's shirt despite the cold. The cow groaned low. Then the calf slid free into the straw, limp and slick, its head fallen to one side. "Crate," Lenora said. The men lifted the calf into it. Eben brought hot water and cloth. Lenora wrapped the blanket around the small body while Matthew cleared its mouth, and Harlan rubbed hard along its ribs. Nothing happened. The sandy-haired hand looked away. "Again," Lenora said. Harlan did, Matthew did. The calf's chest jerked once, then again. A thin breath rasped through the shed. No one cheered. They kept working until the breathing strengthened, and the cow lifted her head toward the crate. Only then did Harlan sit back on his heels. His right hand shook from effort. Lenora lowered the lamp. "It lived because Matthew knew what to do," she said. Matthew wiped his forearm across his brow. "It lived because the oil, cloth, crate, and blanket arrived before we had time to hunt them." Harlan looked at Lenora. "You knew where everything was." "I wrote it down. That is not the same as remembering." "It should be," Eben snorted. "Tell that to men who leave clean rags under saddle blankets." The shed loosened around the remark. Lenora handed the lamp to the young hand and stepped back. Harlan did not thank her as though she had performed a miracle. He said, "Your system saved time." The precision pleased her more than praise would have. By late afternoon, the calf stood unsteadily beside its mother. Snow had begun again, softer than the first storm, brushing the yard in fine white lines. Lenora returned to the house with Harlan, Matthew, and Eben. The sealed freight envelope waited in the lower desk drawer. Harlan lit the office lamp. Lenora placed the desk key in the lock, but did not turn it. "Before we open anything, I want each person to state what he knows." Matthew removed his hat. Eben remained near the stove. Harlan stood at the side of the desk, not behind her. Lenora pointed to him first. "Mr. Beckett?" A small envelope came by stage mail on December 12th. Trinidad freight mark. I wrote Trinidad, freight, December across it, and put it unopened in the lower drawer. "Did you authorize Vernon Dake to collect feed?" "No." "Did you authorize anyone to sign his name as agent?" "No." She turned to Matthew. "Did you receive 2 wagon loads of hay on December 9th? "No. I received 1 load on November 29th and signed for it myself." "Did Vernon have authority while working here?" "To mend fence, feed stock when ordered, and carry messages, not to purchase or collect freight." Eben answered next. He had tended the office stove, but had not opened the drawer. He remembered the envelope lying beneath Harlan's hand when it arrived. Lenora unlocked the desk. The lower drawer slid out with a scrape. Old tax notices lay atop cattle tallies and merchant circulars. Beneath them rested a narrow cream envelope, still closed. Across the front, in Harlan's square hand, were the words he had described. The Trinidad freight stamp marked one corner. Lenora examined the seal without touching it. "Does anyone see a break?" Matthew leaned nearer. Eben shook his head. Harlan said, "It looks as it did when I filed it." "Then you open it," Lenora said. "Why me?" "Because it arrived for Blue Roan, and you are the person who placed it here. I want no later claim that I inserted anything." Harlan accepted the logic. He broke the seal with the edge of a clean knife. One folded paper slid into his palm. No merchant statement, no letter, only a railway freight receipt. Lenora spread it flat on the desk while all 4 remained in place. The heading read Trinidad Freight Office. The date was December 9th, 1889. Beneath it, 2 wagon loads of baled hay were listed against Blue Roan Ranch. The charge matched the missing quantity. At the bottom in dark ink stood a name, V. Dake, agent for Blue Roan Ranch. Matthew read it twice. "That's Vernon." "It is his name," Lenora corrected. "We have not yet proved it is his hand." Harlan's jaw tightened. "He had no authority, whoever wrote it." "That is a fact," she said. "The receipt proves someone used his name to collect Blue Roan's hay. The freight office may prove who stood at the counter." She lifted the envelope. No second sheet clung inside. No statement remained hidden in the fold. "You expected a merchant paper with this." "I expected whatever the stage carried," Harlan said. "I never opened it." Lenora examined the receipt again. The answer they had sought lay before them, but it did not close the matter. It widened it. Vernon had borrowed Blue Roan's ranch, its name, and its credit. He had also sent Lenora to the same door. "Do not move this paper," she said. Not until I make a marked copy and record who saw it opened. Harlan stepped back from the desk. You decide the order. Lenora drew a clean sheet toward her. Outside, Christmas snow settled over the blue porch rail Vernon had described as his own. Inside, 4 witnesses watched her write the first line of a record that might prove he had stolen far more than hay. Lenora divided the evidence into 3 columns before she allowed anyone to name Vernon Dake a thief. Proven fact, supported resemblance, unanswered inference. The headings filled the top of a clean ledger sheet on the morning of December 26th. Receipt 417 lay inside its original freight envelope in the locked office drawer. Lenora's marked transcription rested on the desk, dated and signed by Harlan, Matthew, Eben, and herself. She had copied every word, every number, and the exact position of the railway stamp. Beneath that, she had written one sentence twice, so no one could mistake the copy for the original. Transcription only. Original secured at Blue Roan Ranch. Harlan stood across from the desk with his arms folded. Vernon's name is on the receipt. That belongs in the first column, Lenora said. The receipt bears the name V. Dake. That sounds like the same thing. It is not. She wrote beneath proven fact, Blue Roan Ranch was charged for 2 wagon loads of baled hay on December 9th. Beneath it, the receipt names V. Dake as agent. Beneath that, Harlan Beckett gave Vernon Dake no authority to act for Blue Roan. Now the second column. She opened one of Vernon's letters and placed it beside her transcription. The capital D begins with the same narrow loop. The lower K rises above the other letters. The writer crosses the final T after finishing the word. Harlan leaned nearer without touching either page. So the hand matches. It resembles. You're determined to make every answer smaller than it looks. I am determined not to make it larger than it is. Lenora wrote, receipt signature resembles Vernon Dake's known correspondence. Handwriting comparison not conclusive. The freight office may have a register. A clerk may remember who stood at the counter. A wagon driver may know where the hay went. Those things could prove more. And the third column, Harlan asked. That is where danger lives. She wrote, Vernon may have used Blue Roan's name to obtain goods. Then, Vernon may have directed Lenora Whitcomb to Blue Roan for the same reason. She stopped before the final line. What? Harlan asked. I have not decided whether to write it. Then say it first. Lenora rested the pencil across the page. Vernon may have wanted a wife who could repair the appearance of his accounts after he used another man's credit. Harlan's face hardened. He asked whether missing freight could remain unseen until a bank review. Yes, he praised your bookkeeping. Yes, and he sent you to the ranch whose account he used. All true. None of that proves what he would have asked me to do after I arrived. Harlan looked toward the locked drawer. How much proof do you need before you believe the worst of him? Enough that the truth will survive when anger leaves the room. The answer checked him. He moved away from the desk and poured coffee from the pot near the stove. The lamp above Lenora's shoulder gave a thin hiss, then sent a ribbon of smoke toward the ceiling. She rubbed once at the ache behind her eyes and kept reading. Harlan set down his cup, adjusted the wick, and opened the flue a fraction. The smoke cleared. He did not mention her headache. He only returned to his chair. Blue Roan's banknote, she said. When is it reviewed? End of January. What happens if the hay charge remains and the feed merchant reports a dispute? The bank may freeze new credit until the account is settled. Could you buy replacement hay without it? Some. Not enough if January turns hard. What would you sell? Breeding stock first. His voice stayed even, but the words did not. A rancher could survive a poor winter by selling tomorrow to feed today. The land might remain. The future would not. Lenora added a fourth proven fact. Blue Roan's winter credit depends upon explaining the December charge before bank review. Vernon knew that, she asked. He knew I bought feed on credit. I don't know whether he knew the review date. He asked about bank renewal in his letters. Then he may have known more than I told him. Lenora turned to the blue ribbon packet inside her trunk. She had already chosen one letter during the night. Not the tenderest, not the cruelest in hindsight, the most useful. She unlocked the trunk, removed the folded page, and returned to the desk. Harlan did not follow her eyes into the open trunk. He waited until she closed it again. "This page is private," she said. "I am showing you 3 lines. Nothing more." "Understood." She placed 2 fingers above the first marked sentence. "Read from there." Harlan read aloud. "When you arrive at my ranch, I shall need your orderly mind before I need any other domestic talent." His mouth tightened, but he continued. "The household and feed accounts have suffered from neglect. You can put them in proper order before any visitor or creditor sees them." The 3rd line was lower on the page. "A wife's loyalty is proven in what she protects from strangers." Harlan stopped. That is what he meant. "It may be, Lenora." It was the first time he had used her given name, not possessively, not tenderly, with frustration sharp enough to forget the distance between them. She noticed and did not reward it. "The letter proves he wanted my skill applied to accounts before a creditor saw them," she said. "It does not prove he planned to force a false entry, hide stolen hay, or forge a signature." "You think he wrote all that by chance?" "No, I think he wrote it with purpose. I am telling you purpose must be shown, not merely felt." Harlan pushed back from the desk. "And if the freight office says he collected the hay, then we prove unauthorized collection. If the merchant says Vernon had the order number, then we prove access. If the stage office says he directed you here, then we prove the wrong ranch was no mistake. What would satisfy you about the rest?" Lenora folded the letter along its existing crease. "A page from Bitterwash. A witness who heard him speak. A request that I alter a specific account. Until then, I will not give Vernon the excuse of saying a humiliated woman invented what the papers could not prove." Harlan's anger did not vanish. It changed direction. "Your employer in St. Louis taught you this." "My employer taught me what men do when accurate books become inconvenient." She returned the letter to her locked trunk before he could ask more. That afternoon and the next morning, Lenora and Matthew traced every feed purchase back through November. The earlier deliveries matched signed receiving papers and physical use. Only December 9th depended upon a signature from a man without authority. The missing hay was no clerical drift. It had entered Blue Roan's account and vanished somewhere beyond its barns. Near noon on December 27th, hoofbeats sounded in the yard. A rider from Cinder Mesa arrived with ice crusted along his coat hem and a message folded inside oilcloth. Harlan brought him into the kitchen for coffee. Lenora remained at the office doorway until the rider addressed her directly. "Mrs. Keene at the boarding house sent this for Miss Whitcomb." The note was brief. "Vernon Dake returned yesterday. He says a woman from Missouri was expected and demands to know why she has not been brought to him." Lenora read it twice, then handed it to Harlan. "How does he know I arrived?" "Ellis Greer may have told the stage office," the rider said. "Folks saw your wagon pass through Cinder Mesa." "Did Vernon ask only about me?" Lenora asked. The rider shifted on the chair. "No, Mom." Harlan set down the coffee pot. "What else?" He asked whether Blue Roan had complained about a December freight charge. No one spoke. The rider looked from one face to another and seemed to regret the sentence. Lenora did not let him retreat from it. "Who heard him ask?" "The merchant. I was unloading flour near the counter." "Did the merchant answer?" Said Mr. Beckett had not come in himself. Vernon told him the ranch would deny receiving the hay once the bank started asking questions. Harlan's hand closed around the back of a chair. "That was before Lenora or I spoke to anyone in town." "Yes, sir." "Did the merchant say how Vernon knew the charge was disputed?" "No." Lenora returned to the office and added a line beneath proven fact. On December 27th, a Cinder Mesa rider reported hearing Vernon ask whether Blue Roan had challenged the December freight charge. She did not write how Vernon learned it. Not yet. The messenger finished his coffee and pulled on his gloves. At the back door he hesitated. "There is one more thing." Harlan waited. "The merchant says Vernon came into the store before the hay was collected. Asked about work first, then spent a long while near the account book while the clerk was totaling Blue Roan's order." Lenora's pencil stopped above the page. Vernon had not needed access to Harlan's locked office after all. He may have found the order number in plain sight, inside a merchant's trust. The question was no longer whether he had borrowed Blue Roan's name. It was how many people had helped him use it without asking for proof. 5 days passed before the road held firm enough for a wagon, And by then Blue Roan had only 23 days of safe feed left. Lenora wrote the number at the top of the ration sheet on the morning of January 2nd. No one argued with it. Matthew's 3-day test had separated waste from need. Spoiled hay now stood in a red-marked section. Open bales were weighed before they left the barn. The cattle had not lost condition, and the measured ration had gained the ranch nearly 4 days. It was not salvation. It was time. Outside, men cleared the final drift from the road to Cinder Mesa. Inside the office, Harlan read a notice delivered by the first rider to break through from town. The Cinder Mesa merchant would extend no further feed credit until Blue Roan explained the December charge. If the bank received the account in dispute, the ranch's winter line might be suspended before the formal review. Harlan set the notice beside Lenora's columns. They've acted sooner than expected. Because Vernon asked about the charge, she said. He gave them reason to protect themselves. By protecting him, by protecting their books. Men often mistake the two. She closed the ledger. The original receipt 417 remained inside its freight envelope in the locked lower drawer. Her transcription and witness record lay in her document folder. Vernon's letters remained tied with faded blue ribbon in her trunk. Each object was where it belonged. That order mattered more now that other people knew evidence existed. I am moving to Cinder Mesa today, she said. Harlan's attention lifted from the notice. The road is barely open. A light wagon can pass. Your men just proved it. The Bitterwash branch is still drifted. I did not say Bitterwash. He understood before she explained. Mrs. Keene's boarding house. I need independent lodging before I confront Vernon. If I remain here, every word I say can be dismissed as loyalty to the man sheltering me. You are employed here. That will not stop gossip from improving the arrangement. Harlan looked toward the frosted window. Men moved across the yard carrying shovels. You can keep the front room without owing me anything, I know. Then this is not about safety. It is about credibility, mine. He did not tell her credibility should not matter. He had lived long enough among merchants, creditors, and ranch families to know that it did. I'll take you, he said. I will pay Mrs. Keene for my wages. The investigation requires lodging. The first 3 nights are mine. If Blue Roan needs me there longer, we can add it as an expense in writing. Harlan's mouth tightened. You negotiate every kindness until it becomes business. Business is easier to refuse. The words reached him. He glanced at the repaired compass on her wrist, then back to her face. All right, 3 nights from your wages. You will stay where? The livery has rooms above the office. Not the boarding house, not unless you ask. Lenora gathered the ration sheets. I will not, then I won't. They prepared without hurry. Lenora locked her private letters inside the trunk and kept the key in her purse. The document folder containing the marked transcription traveled beneath her coat. Receipt 417 remained at Blue Roan. Inside the original envelope, in the locked desk, she recorded that location in the office ledger and had Harlan sign beneath it. Matthew witnessed the entry. If anyone opens the desk, she told him, write the time, the reason, and every person present. Even Mr. Beckett? Matthew asked. Especially Mr. Beckett. Harlan signed without protest. The light wagon left after noon. Her trunk rode beneath a tied canvas behind the seat. Harlan placed a heated brick wrapped in sacking beneath her boots, then asked before tucking the second blanket around her knees. She accepted the blanket and refused his gloves. The sky remained clear, but wind crossed the open ground hard enough to make speech difficult. Where the track narrowed between drifts, Harlan angled his body toward the north wind. He did not mention it. Lenora noticed because evidence did not always come on paper. Cinder Mesa appeared after 2 slow hours, a church steeple, a general store, the stage office joined to the livery, and a row of houses crouched against the cold. People saw the Blue Roan wagon. They also saw Lenora's trunk. Mrs. Keene opened the boarding house door before Harlan reached the steps. She was a solid woman in a brown dress, with iron gray hair pinned tightly above her neck. Her eyes moved from Lenora to Harlan and then to the trunk. Miss Whitcomb? Yes, I have a front room for 3 nights. I will pay in advance. Mrs. Keene named the amount. Lenora counted it from her wage money and asked for a receipt. The request surprised the woman but did not offend her. Harlan carried the trunk only after Lenora nodded. He set it inside the room, stepped back into the hall, and left before Mrs. Keene could suggest tea. "Folks have been calling you the Christmas bride," Mrs. Keene said after the door closed. Lenora removed her gloves. "Then they have been calling me incorrectly. Some say Mr. Beckett kept you at his ranch. The storm kept me there, Mr. Beckett gave me a locked room and slept in his bunkhouse." Mrs. Keene's face altered by a fraction. "That is not the version Vernon Dake is telling. Then I expect he will dislike mine." Lenora locked the trunk, placed the key in her purse, and went downstairs. Harlan waited outside beneath the boarding house awning. He had not entered. "Merchant first," she said. "Then the stage office. After that, I want a message sent to Trinidad preserving the freight entry. The telegraph request has to go with the afternoon stage," he said. "Then we should not waste time." The cinder mesa merchant stood behind his counter with both hands spread upon an account book. Lenora showed him her marked transcription, not the original receipt. "Did Vernon Dake see Blue Roan's December hay order before December 9th?" she asked. The merchant looked toward Harlan. "Miss Whitcomb asked you," Harlan said. The man cleared his throat. "He came looking for work." The clerk was totaling accounts. Dake stood near enough to see the Blue Roan page. "Did he ask about the order?" said Mr. Beckett. "Might need another team to haul it." "Did you confirm that with Mr. Beckett?" "No." "Did Vernon have the order number?" He repeated it back to the clerk. Lenora placed one finger on the transcription. "After the shipment was collected, did he ask whether Blue Roan disputed the charge?" "Yes." "When?" "Yesterday morning." "What did you tell him?" The merchant hesitated. "That Mr. Beckett had not come in, but a rider said questions were being asked." "So you informed Vernon that the charge was under suspicion?" "I did not know he had signed the receipt." "You knew he had seen the order number and later asked whether the ranch denied delivery. That is not proof of theft." "No," Lenora said. "It is proof of what you personally observed." She drew a clean sheet from her folder. "Will you write it?" His mouth flattened. "A signed statement could make the feed house say I accepted an unauthorized agent." "Did you verify his authority?" "No." "Then the paper does not create the failure." The merchant looked at Harlan again. Harlan remained beside the door, offering no easier answer. "I want time," the man said. "You may have until tomorrow," Lenora replied, "but the bank will not wait for everyone to become comfortable." At the stage office, the agent agreed to place a telegram request on the afternoon run to Trinidad. Lenora wrote the message herself. "Hold and preserve December 9th Blue Roan, freight number 14, written in query follows, Lenora Whitcomb." She paid from the travel allowance specified in her agreement. Harlan read it only after she offered the page. When they returned to the boarding house, a boy from the church waited on the steps with a folded note. The writing was Vernon's. Lenora recognized the narrow capital D before she broke the seal. "You gave me your word. Come to the relief supper at 7. Bring no rancher who thinks he can keep what belongs to me." Harlan read the note after she handed it to him. "Do you want me there?" "Yes." "Beside you?" "No." "Behind me, where I can see you." "And if he threatens you?" "You wait until I ask or until he lays a hand on me." Every protective instinct in Harlan resisted. She saw it in the set of his shoulders. "All right," he said, "at 7. The relief hall smelled of coffee, wet wool, and pine boughs drying above the windows. Lenora entered first. Conversation thinned as people recognized her. Harlan followed several steps behind and stopped near the wall, where she could see him without turning fully around. Vernon Dake stood beside the stove in a dark suit, brushed almost clean. He was shorter than Harlan, leaner than his letters had made him seem, with a trimmed mustache and a pleasant face arranged for witnesses. In one hand he held a packet of letters tied with brown twine. Lenora recognized her own handwriting on the upper page. The letters she had sent him. Vernon raised the packet as though it were a claim recorded before God and town alike. "Lenora Whitcomb," he said. "You gave me your word." "You gave me your word," Vernon repeated, lifting the brown-tied packet, so the people nearest the stove could see Lenora's handwriting. Lenora did not step toward him. "I gave honest answers to letters built on a false name." A cup touched a saucer near the back wall. Someone shifted a bench. No one interrupted. Vernon smiled as though patience itself favored him. You agreed to come west and become my wife. I agreed to meet the man who claimed Blue Roan Ranch was his. And there he stands. Vernon turned enough to include Harlan in the accusation. A man who kept you under his roof before I could reach you. Harlan remained where Lenora had asked him to stand, several paces behind her and near the wall. His hands were visible. His face gave Vernon nothing. Lenora said, "The storm kept me at Blue Roan. Mr. Beckett gave me a locked room and slept in the bunkhouse." Vernon glanced around the hall. "So he says. So I say." His smile thinned. "You have been with him less than 2 weeks, yet you speak his version better than your own. My version begins with the truth. You wrote that Blue Roan belonged to you." Vernon tapped the packet against his palm. "A man may describe the home he intends to provide. You described another man's house, barn, well, porch rail, and ridge. You named false references. You never wrote Bitterwash once." A woman near the coffee urn lowered her eyes. Vernon heard the small movement in the room and adjusted. Bitterwash was temporary. Blue Roan was failing. I expected circumstances to change before you arrived. You expected Harlan Beckett to lose his ranch? Everyone knows his credit is strained. Harlan's jaw tightened, but he did not speak. Lenora caught the opening. How do you know about his credit? Ranch business is discussed by men who conduct it. You asked the Cinder Mesa merchant whether Blue Roan had challenged a December freight charge. Vernon's gaze sharpened. You have been prying. I have been working for him, for wages, paid by the man who wants to turn you against me. Lenora reached into her coat and drew out Vernon's note from earlier that day. You wrote that no rancher should come with me because he thinks he can keep what belongs to you. She held the page at her side. Explain what belongs to you. Vernon's expression hardened under the pleasant arrangement. A promise. A promise obtained through false statements. A woman cannot cross half the country on a man's word and then cast him aside because a better house opens its door. Heat rose along Lenora's neck. She let it rise. Shame did not become truth merely because a room witnessed it. Blue Roan was the house you promised, she said. You did not lose me to a better offer. You sent me to the wrong man. Vernon untied the brown twine and removed the first letter. You wrote that you wanted a settled home. You wrote that you would help your husband with correspondence and accounts. You wrote that you understood loyalty. Read the rest. His fingers stopped. Read where I said marriage required truth. Read where I asked for the names of people who could vouch for you. Read the questions you answered with a preacher who does not exist and a merchant who left Colorado 2 years ago. The merchant himself was not present, but 2 women near the wall exchanged a glance. Vernon folded the page once. A man protects his privacy before marriage. By borrowing another man's ranch, I intended to explain when you arrived. At Blue Roan, wherever it became necessary, before or after I put your accounts in order. That struck him, not dramatically. A small tightening around the mouth. Enough. Lenora continued. You wrote that I should arrange household and feed accounts before any creditors saw them. What accounts did you mean? A wife helps where she is needed. At Blue Roan or Bitterwash, you twist every sentence, then untwist it. Name the ranch. Name the books. Name the debt. Vernon looked beyond her toward Harlan. This is his work. He has filled your head with suspicion because he knows the bank is coming for him. Harlan answered at last. The bank is reviewing an account. It is not taking my ranch. Vernon gave a short laugh. Not yet. Lenora heard the cruelty, but she also heard the admission beneath it. Vernon had not merely known Harlan's credit was strained. He had expected the pressure to worsen. Did you collect 2 wagon loads of hay in Trinidad on December 9th? She asked. His eyes returned to her. If you have proof, show it. That is not a denial. It is the answer you earned. Did Harlan authorize you to act for Blue Roan? Beckett owed me. Harlan took 1 step forward. Lenora raised her hand without turning. He stopped. Vernon noticed, and satisfaction returned to his face. There, he said. Even now you protect him. I am protecting the question. Did he authorize you? Vernon's fingers tightened around the letter. I worked for Blue Roan. I knew its needs. That is not authority. You know nothing of ranch business. I know a signature does not become lawful because the signer wanted something. A low murmur passed near the rear door. Vernon raised his voice. "You hear how she speaks? She came west to become a wife, and now Beckett has put her at a desk so she can accuse the man she promised. Mr. Beckett did not put me anywhere. You slept in his house, behind a locked door, and he slept where no one could verify." Harlan moved again. This time the words came before judgment. "She's staying with me." The sentence crossed the room with more force than Vernon's taunt. Lenora turned. Harlan seemed to hear what he had said only after it stood between them. Vernon spread his hands. "There it is." Lenora faced Harlan fully. "No," his voice lowered. "Miss Whitcomb, I meant, do not tell this room where I am staying. I meant you are under my protection. That is not what you said." Harlan did not defend the wording. The restraint came too late, but it came. Lenora turned back to Vernon. "And you will not use his mistake to make your claim true." She stepped into the open space between both men. "I am not his to place. I am not yours to keep. I crossed the country because I chose to answer letters. That choice did not make me property." The hall did not erupt. No one applauded. The truth settled into the room and left people to decide whether they could live with it. Mrs. Keene stood near the doorway, her mouth set in approval. The sandy-haired Blue Roan hand removed his hat. Vernon looked from face to face and found fewer allies than he had expected. "You think these people will respect a woman who stayed alone at a bachelor's ranch?" he asked. "Their respect is theirs to manage. The bank will care. The feed merchant will care. Beckett's credit is already suspended, and now you have tied your name to his." Harlan's voice came hard. "How do you know the credit was suspended?" Vernon paused. "A single beat. The merchant speaks to men who conduct business." "He told you before he told me?" Harlan asked. Vernon's expression closed. Lenora saw the new question form. The merchant had not merely failed to verify authority. He had continued passing information to the man who used it. "Withdraw your accusation," Vernon said to Lenora. "Come to Bitter Wash when the North Branch opens, and I may still overlook this display. You may keep your forgiveness. Then you will leave yourself nowhere to go when Blue Roan fails." Lenora folded his note and placed it back inside her coat. "I have a paid room at Mrs. Keene's. I have wages of my own, and I have the right to go east, north, or nowhere at all without your permission." Vernon retied the brown twine around her letters. "You will regret choosing him. I have not chosen him." The answer struck Harlan as well as Vernon. Lenora allowed that consequence. Vernon walked toward the door. Before leaving, he looked at Harlan. "When the bank takes your cattle, remember, she brought the questions that finished you." Harlan said nothing. Vernon stepped into the cold and pulled the door shut behind him. Conversation returned in low fragments, but Lenora did not remain to hear how the room rearranged the story. She crossed the street to Mrs. Keene's boarding house. Harlan followed only after several breaths. The porch lamp burned above a rail silvered with frost. Lenora stopped at the steps and faced him. "I was wrong," he said. "Which part?" "I spoke as if your answer belonged to me." "It did not." "No, you wanted to protect me." "Yes, that does not improve it. I know." He did not say Vernon had provoked him. He did not ask her to excuse fear as love. "You told me I would choose what happened next," Lenora said. "Then you announced my choice before I made it." "I did." "Why?" Harlan looked toward the dark street, then back to her. "Because he spoke of you as something to be returned, and I answered him in the same language." His injured pride did not hide behind good intentions. "I should have answered better. You should have remained where I placed you." "Yes." Lenora held the porch rail until the cold bit through her glove. "I need you to leave." Harlan accepted the sentence at once. "All right, do not come inside." "I won't." "Do not decide where I go tomorrow." "I won't." He stepped down from the porch, then stopped at the gate. "A message came to the livery while we were in the hall. The merchant has suspended Blue Roan's feed credit until the December charge is settled." Vernon's attack had already moved beyond gossip. "That is your ranch problem," Lenora said. "Yes, not my debt." "No, then go." Harlan went. He did not wait in the road for her to soften. He did not look back. Lenora entered the boarding house, climbed to her room, and locked the door. Her trunk stood beside the bed. Vernon's blue ribbon letters remained inside. The document folder rested beneath her coat. The compass at her wrist pointed north. For the first time since arriving in Colorado, direction was not the question. Trust was. And Harlan Beckett had just broken the part of it she had been willing to lend him. By breakfast on January 4th, Harlan Beckett was gone. Mrs. Keene delivered the fact with coffee and a slice of yesterday's bread, toasted over the stove. "Took the early southbound stage," she said. "Trinidad Road." Lenora buttered the toast she did not want. "Did he leave a message?" "Not with me." "Did he arrange anything before he went?" Mrs. Keene considered the question. "No room, no payment, no instructions concerning you." The last words should have relieved her. Instead, they left an emptiness she distrusted. Harlan had made one serious mistake and admitted it. Now he had ridden away while Blue Roan's feed credit stood suspended, and Vernon Dake's accusation moved through town faster than fact. Perhaps Harlan had decided the ranch mattered more than repairing trust. It should have. A working ranch could not wait upon one woman's disappointment. Yet Lenora had expected something from him. Not an apology repeated, an action shaped by the exact harm. She returned to her room and locked the door. Vernon's blue ribbon letters remained in her trunk. Her first employment agreement lay beneath them, signed by both Harlan and herself. The marked transcription of Receipt 417 rested in the document folder inside her purse. The original remained at Blue Roan, inside the freight envelope in the locked desk, with its location recorded and witnessed. Nothing had moved. Facts stayed where people placed them. Feelings did not. Lenora drew a clean sheet from her writing case and dated it January 4, 1890. Then she recorded the Relief Hall confrontation in 3 sections. Vernon's statements, Harlan's statements, her own replies. She wrote Vernon's claim that she had promised marriage, his refusal to name Bitterwash in the letters, his knowledge of Blue Roan's suspended credit, his suggestion that Harlan would lose the ranch. Then she wrote Harlan's words without softening them. "She's staying with me." Beneath that, her own answer. "I am not his to place. I am not yours to keep." She read the page once, corrected no meaning, and signed at the bottom. Anger often altered memory in its own favor. She would not permit hers that luxury. The morning passed. Noon came. No stage returned from the south. Lenora went to the general store and learned the merchant still refused to sign a statement. She did not argue. She told him the freight office had been asked to preserve entry 417, and that his own account would be examined with it. His face changed enough to prove the information mattered. By late afternoon, wind had begun pushing loose snow along the street in thin white ropes. Lenora returned to the boarding house and found no message. Harlan had not come back. Mrs. Keene watched her remove her gloves. "You expected him today." "I expected nothing. That is a difficult habit to maintain honestly." Lenora set the gloves beside the stove. "Then I will not pretend I maintained it." She spent the night in the locked room with the chair beneath the latch. Near midnight, wagon wheels passed outside. They did not stop. She slept little. The next morning, January 5th, the southbound road remained open beneath a pale sky. Harlan returned shortly before noon. Lenora heard his boots in the entrance hall. Then Mrs. Keene's voice. No knock came at her room. Several minutes later, Mrs. Keene climbed the stairs. "Mr. Beckett asks whether you will meet him in the front parlor. Is anyone else present? I will remain." Then yes. Harlan stood on the far side of the parlor table when Lenora entered. Road dust and dried snow marked his coat. Fatigue had settled beneath his eyes. He removed his hat but made no move toward her. 3 objects lay on the table, separated from one another by several inches: a cream railway envelope, a boarding house receipt, a folded sheet with a clerk's neat hand across the front. Lenora stopped opposite him. "What are these?" "Things I should have made certain you possessed before I spoke for you." He touched the railway envelope first. A ticket from Trinidad East to St. Louis. Good for 30 days. The station agent said its value may be applied to another eastern destination if you choose. You bought my return passage. I bought a route that does not depend on me. His hand moved to the receipt. 1 month in this boarding house, beginning after the 3 nights you paid for yourself. Front room. Meals included. Mrs. Keene sat near the window with sewing in her lap. "Paid in full," she confirmed. Harlan indicated the folded paper. "A new employment offer." It replaces the first agreement only if you accept it. The first remains valid until then. Lenora opened it. The paper retained the original 2-week term, wage, travel allowance, access to freight, merchant, bank, and ranch records, and her right to leave when travel was safe. Added beneath were 3 plain clauses. Employment creates no promise of residence or marriage. Wages already earned remain payable if Miss Whitcomb ends the work. Any original paper connected to the disputed freight shall be placed with the county clerk or another agreed custodian whose receipt is written down. "Who wrote this?" she asked. "A clerk in Trinidad. I gave him the terms. He wrote them plainly." "Why did you not return yesterday?" "The stage north had already left. I stayed near the depot and took the first one this morning." The answer repaired the travel question, without asking credit for the inconvenience. Lenora read the new offer again. "You could have apologized." "I did. Many men believe that ends the matter. It did not end what I did." His voice remained level. "I told a public room where you were staying as if I had authority over the answer. I cannot pull the sentence back. I can make certain no decision you make now depends on my roof, my money, or my hope." "Your money purchased all 3. "Yes. Then how do they free me from you?" "Because none requires you to stay with me." He did not flinch from the question. "The ticket lets you leave. The room lets you remain in Cinder Mesa without Blue Roan. The work lets you continue the account without owing me residence or affection." Lenora looked at the cream envelope. "If I take the ticket and refuse the work, the ticket is yours. If I take the room and go to Bitterwash when the branch opens." A hard restraint entered his face. "The room remains paid. I provide a wagon if you ask, or pay another driver if you prefer. If I accept the work and never return to Blue Roan except for records, then we bring the records here or meet where you choose. If I take all 3, they are still yours. You are making a costly correction. It should cost the man who made the mistake." Mrs. Keene's needle paused above the cloth. Lenora folded the offer along its existing crease. "What do you want?" Harlan's eyes met hers. "I want you to finish the account." "Only that?" "No." The word came without decoration. "But anything else I want has no place in your decision today." He lifted his hat from the chair. "Mrs. Keene can witness that I delivered these without condition. I will be at the livery until tomorrow. I will not ask for your answer while I am standing here." "You are leaving the papers?" "Yes." "All of them?" "Yes, even the ticket, especially the ticket." He nodded to Mrs. Keene and walked out. The door closed. He did not wait on the porch. Lenora remained at the table until his footsteps faded toward the livery. Then she opened the railway envelope. Her name had been written correctly. The route east was real. She placed the ticket inside her purse. From that moment it remained in her possession. The boarding house receipt went beside it. The employment offer stayed on the table. "He paid for freedom with his own money," Mrs. Keene said. "That does not purchase forgiveness, no." Lenora drew out her pencil. "It purchases the right not to be trapped while I decide whether forgiveness is possible." She added 2 lines beneath the clerk's clauses. "The original freight receipt shall be removed from Blue Roan only before named witnesses. No journey to Bitterwash shall occur unless requested by Lenora Whitcomb." Mrs. Keene leaned closer. "You intend to continue?" "I intend to choose the work, nothing else." She signed beneath the additions and passed the page across. "Will you witness?" Mrs. Keene signed. Harlan returned to the parlor late that afternoon at Lenora's request. He read every added word. "The original stays at Blue Roan until witnessed removal," he said. "Yes, and Bitterwash only if you ask." "Yes," he signed beneath her amendments. Lenora folded the new agreement and placed it in her purse beside the ticket and lodging receipt. 3 separate choices. None canceled the others. "Receipt 417 cannot remain in the ranch desk," she said. "Vernon knows the charge is disputed. He may not know where the paper is, but he knows it can hurt him." Harlan's attention sharpened. "You want it moved, in front of Matthew and Eben, sealed, then deposited with the county clerk in Trinidad, where every hand that touches it is written down." "When?" "Tomorrow morning." Harlan nodded. "I will have the wagon ready." Lenora closed her purse. "You will have the wagon ready if the road is safe." A faint weariness crossed his face, followed by acceptance. "If the road is safe." Outside, a boy from the general store ran across the street carrying a note. Mrs. Keene admitted him. The message was for Harlan, but after reading it, he handed it to Lenora. Vernon denied signing any freight receipt. He demanded that the original be produced. Lenora folded the paper once. He wants to know where it is. Harlan glanced toward the north road. Then we should reach it before he does. They left for Blue Roan at first light on January 6th, before Vernon could learn whether the road had opened. Harlan drove the light wagon. Lenora sat beside him with the amended employment agreement, boarding house receipt, and eastbound ticket inside her purse. The desk key lay wrapped in a handkerchief beneath them. The road had frozen hard overnight, but deep ruts shook the wagon whenever the wheels slipped from the packed center. Harlan kept the horses to a steady pace. He did not urge them for speed merely because fear favored haste. "If the receipt is gone," Lenora said, "we record who last saw it, where it was kept, and when. You, me, Matthew, and Eben saw it opened. They witnessed the paper. They did not witness where it stayed afterward. Matthew witnessed the ledger notation. That helps. It does not replace the original." Harlan accepted the distinction. "And if it is still there, we move it where no one can accuse either of us of changing it." Blue Roan appeared near mid-morning under a hard gray sky. Matthew Rourke met them outside the barn. "Someone tested the office window last night," he said before Harlan climbed down. "Latch held, left scratches near the iron plate." Harlan's gaze moved to the ranch house. "Did anyone see him?" "Dog barked after midnight. By the time we came out, tracks were already heading toward the west draw." Lenora stepped from the wagon without waiting for assistance. "Has anyone entered the office?" Eben lit the stove. "I stood in the doorway. Did either of you touch the desk?" "No." "Then both of you come inside." The four entered together. Fresh marks showed beneath the window latch, bright against the dark wood. One screw had bent outward. Whoever tested it knew where the old weakness had been. Lenora removed the desk key from the handkerchief and laid it on the table before unlocking the lower drawer. Receipt 417 was returned to its original freight envelope and placed beneath the November cattle tally, she said. The location was written in the office ledger and witnessed by Matthew. "That is what I signed," Matthew said. Eben stood near the stove, arms crossed. Harlan remained behind Lenora's right shoulder, but far enough that every movement at the desk could be seen. She opened the drawer, lifted the cattle tally, and found the narrow cream envelope beneath it. The broken freight seal remained as they had left it. The receipt lay inside. Relief came sharply, then passed. Lenora unfolded the paper on the desk. "Trinidad Freight Receipt Number 417, she read. "December 9th, 1889. 2 wagon loads of baled hay, billed to Blue Roan Ranch. Signed V. Dake, agent for Blue Roan Ranch." Matthew leaned closer. "Same paper. State what you remember," Lenora said. "Same railway stamp. Same fold. Same dark mark near the lower edge." Eben nodded, and the same tear in the corner where the paper caught when Mr. Beckett opened the envelope. Lenora recorded each statement. She then took a clean, heavier envelope from the office shelf and wrote across the front, "Original Receipt 417. Removed from Blue Roan desk January 6, 1890, in the presence of Lenora Whitcomb, Harlan Beckett, Matthew Rourke, and Eben Cole." She slid the receipt inside without allowing it to pass from her hands. Harlan warmed a stick of blue sealing wax over the lamp. "You seal it," she said. "Why me?" "Because it is Blue Roan's record. After that, it remains in my possession until the county clerk signs for it." Harlan pressed the ranch stamp into the wax. Lenora signed across the sealed flap. Matthew and Eben added their names. Harlan signed last. "From now on," Lenora said, "no one opens this envelope unless every broken seal and every witness is written down." Harlan stepped away from the desk. "You carry it." He did not ask to hold it while she put on her coat. Lenora placed the sealed envelope inside a cloth document pouch and fastened the pouch beneath her coat against her ribs. The desk was locked again. Matthew received instructions to record any entry into the office, even Harlan's. By noon, Lenora and Harlan were back on the road to Cinder Mesa. They spent the night there because the southbound stage did not leave until dawn. Lenora slept with the document pouch beneath her pillow, the chair under the latch, and the return ticket locked inside her trunk. Harlan stayed above the livery office. On January 7th, they boarded the stage for Trinidad. Snow slowed the coach through 2 drifted cuts. Once, all passengers climbed down while the driver guided the team across a glazed slope. Harlan never asked Lenora to surrender the pouch. When they reached Trinidad after dark, they took separate rooms near the depot. The county offices had closed, so Lenora paid the hotel clerk to sign a line stating that the sealed envelope remained in her possession overnight. The next morning, the county clerk inspected the Blue Roan wax and the signatures before accepting the envelope. "You wish this deposited with the county?" he asked. "Until the disputed account and any complaint arising from it are settled," Lenora said. "Every person who opens or removes it must be entered in your book." The clerk opened the envelope in the presence of Lenora, Harlan, and a deputy from the sheriff's office. He compared the original receipt with Lenora's marked transcription, noted the small corner tier and the railway stamp, then placed the paper inside a county envelope. He sealed it, signed across the flap, and entered the date, hour, and names present. Lenora read the entry before signing beneath him. "It does not leave this office without another notation?" she asked. "Not lawfully, including Mr. Beckett." The clerk glanced at Harlan, "Including Mr. Beckett." Harlan answered before the clerk could make the question awkward. "That is why we brought it here." At the freight office, the agent found the December register after nearly an hour. Entry 417 listed Blue Roan Ranch as debtor and Vernon Dake as the man who collected 2 wagon loads of hay. A note beside the entry read North Road. "Did you see him yourself?" Lenora asked. "I had seen him before, but I was not at the counter that morning." "Who was?" "A clerk now working in Pueblo." "Was written authority recorded?" "No." "Would it normally be required?" "For a man collecting against another ranch's account, yes." Harlan's voice remained controlled. "Why was it waived?" The agent rubbed at the edge of the page. Dake had the order number and spoke as if the arrangement was known. The clerk accepted it. Lenora paid for a certified copy of the entry. The original register remained with the freight office. The records now proved that Vernon had collected the hay. They did not prove where he took it. On January 9th, the return stage reached Cinder Mesa near sunset. Lenora climbed down beside the livery with her purse in one hand and the document pouch now holding only certified copies beneath her coat. Harlan set her small valise on the boardwalk. Vernon stepped from the alley before either of them reached the boarding house road. He wore no hat despite the cold. "You went to Trinidad," he said. "Yes, with him, on a public stage. You are determined to destroy what remains of your name. You have mistaken your reputation for mine." Vernon's eyes narrowed. "Withdraw your statement." "No." "Tell the merchant Beckett confused the delivery." "No." "Come to Bitter Wash and hear the truth without him at your shoulder." Harlan moved several paces away before Lenora answered. "I'll give you room," he said. Vernon gave a contemptuous laugh. He rehearsed that. Did he? Lenora kept her attention on Vernon. "Did you collect 2 wagon loads of hay from the Trinidad freight office on December 9th? You keep asking as if repetition makes you a judge. The freight register names you. A clerk may write any name he is given. Then you deny being there." "I deny your right to question me." "That is not a denial." Lenora turned toward the boarding house. Vernon caught her arm above the elbow. Harlan crossed the distance at once. He closed one hand around Vernon's wrist and removed the grip from Lenora's sleeve. No blow followed, no threat. He simply forced the fingers open and released Vernon when Lenora was free. "She said no," Harlan said. Vernon rubbed his wrist. "No, it makes her answer final." Lenora adjusted her sleeve. "Do not touch me again." Vernon's face went flat. "When Blue Roan falls, you will wish you had listened." He walked toward the north road without another word. The stage driver watched him leave, then spat into the snow. Man always did favor borrowed directions. Lenora turned. Ellis Greer stood beside the rear wheel, tightening a strap. "What does that mean?" Ellis looked from her to Harlan. "Dake wrote your route into the booking folio 2 weeks before you arrived. Named Blue Roan. Gave the gate marks, cottonwood, and blue rail." Lenora felt the wrong ranch journey change shape. The storm had stranded her there. Vernon had chosen the place. "Is the entry still in the book?" she asked. Ellis's expression hardened. Should be. But Vernon came by yesterday asking whether old route pages were kept after the passenger arrived. Lenora looked toward the stage office door. Show me the folio. Pollard unlocked the iron cabinet, while Ellis Greer kept one hand on the stage office door. The booking folio lay beneath freight schedules and old passenger lists, its leather cover darkened by years of wet gloves. Pollard carried it to the counter and turned the pages himself. No one touches the book but me, he said. Copies may be made, that is sufficient, Lenora answered. Page 212 bore her name, Lenora Whitcomb, expected from Trinidad. Final conveyance to Blue Roan Ranch. Ask for Vernon Dake. Beneath the entry, in a narrower hand, were the landmarks Ellis had followed through the storm. West Road from Cinder Mesa, 2 iron shoes at the gate, split cottonwood beside the well blue-painted front rail. The directions did not mention Bitterwash. They did not describe a wrong turn. They placed her at Blue Roan deliberately. Harlan read from several feet away, leaving the counter clear. That is Vernon's hand, he said. Lenora compared the entry with one of Vernon's letters, then corrected him. The hand resembles his correspondence. Pollard gave her a sidelong glance. You expect another man wrote his directions. I expect the truth to withstand accurate language. She took out paper and copied the entry word for word, including the page number, office heading, date, and spacing. Ellis compared each line to the original. Pollard read the copy next, signed beneath it, and pressed the stage office stamp near the lower corner. When did Vernon ask about this page? Lenora asked. Yesterday morning. His words. Pollard rested both palms on the counter. He asked whether route instructions were kept after a passenger reached the final stop. I said they were. Then he offered $5 for page 212. Harlan's gaze hardened. To purchase a public office record? To remove a page he called useless. Pollard closed the folio. I told him useless paper does not usually cost $5. Did he threaten you? Lenora asked. No. He smiled and said I might regret keeping old mistakes. Did he name Blue Roan? No. Did he touch the book? Never. Pollard returned the original folio to the iron cabinet and locked it. Lenora watched the key go into his vest pocket. The original remains here, until a lawful request says otherwise. Write that on my copy, Pollard did. The stage book entry proved the storm had not caused her wrong ranch arrival. Vernon had arranged it before she ever reached Colorado. Yet the proof created a larger question. Why send her to Blue Roan if he could not appear there without exposing the lie? The Cinder Mesa merchant answered part of it when Pollard sent Ellis to fetch him. The man entered reluctantly, bringing cold air and the smell of flour dust. I already told Miss Whitcomb what I know, he said. You refused to write it, Lenora replied. Now the stage record shows Vernon used Blue Roan's name before the freight was collected. She laid her certified copy beside the transcription of Receipt 417. This record placed me at Blue Roan. The freight record placed 2 wagon loads of hay on Blue Roan's account. Both acts required details Vernon did not own. The merchant read the pages. A route and a feed order are not the same business. No, they are the same borrowed identity. Harlan remained near the window. He did not move closer when the merchant glanced toward him for rescue. Lenora continued. Did Vernon see Blue Roan's order number? Yes. Did Harlan authorize him in your presence? No. Did you ask Harlan before the hay was released? No. Did Vernon tell you he worked for Blue Roan? He said Mr. Beckett might need another team. That was not my question. The merchant's mouth tightened. He spoke as if he had authority, and you accepted the manner instead of confirming the fact. Business moves quickly when weather turns. So does fraud. Pollard lowered his eyes to hide a reaction. Lenora placed a clean sheet on the counter. Write only what you personally know, not what Vernon intended, not where the hay went. State that he saw the order number, that Harlan never confirmed authority, and that Vernon later asked whether the disputed charge threatened Blue Roan's credit. If I sign, the feed house may hold me responsible. It may hold you responsible whether you sign or not. The difference is whether your account reaches the review before someone else tells it for you. The merchant looked toward Harlan. You will let her use this against me? Harlan answered without changing position. She is not using anything. She is asking you to state what happened." The merchant's face reddened. "You dismissed Dake for theft and never warned me." The accusation struck true. Harlan did not evade it. "I removed him and thought that ended the matter. I was wrong." "Then part of this belongs to you." "Yes." Lenora watched the merchant absorb that answer. Shared responsibility did not erase separate failures. It made denial harder. At last, he wrote the statement. He included no claim that Vernon stole the hay and no guess that Bitterwash received it. Lenora read every line before Pollard witnessed the signature. "This is limited," the merchant said. "It should be," she replied. "A narrow truth is stronger than a wide lie." 4 days later, on January 15th, Matthew Rourke rode into Cinder Mesa on a livery horse flecked with foam. He had changed mounts halfway from Blue Roan after pushing his own gelding through the morning drifts. Harlan met him outside the boarding house. Lenora came down with her document pouch already beneath her coat. "Vernon broke into the office," Matthew said. "When?" Harlan asked. "Before dawn." Cole heard the window give. "We found Dake inside with the desk pulled apart." "Why is he still there?" Lenora asked. "He fired one shot into the ceiling when the boys tried the hall." Harlan's expression went cold. "Anyone hurt?" "No, we backed out. He barred the office door. Says he wants the receipt and will leave when he has it." "The receipt is in Trinidad," Lenora said. "He does not know that." Matthew nodded. "We kept men at the front and window. He has not come out." Harlan turned toward the livery. "We need the deputy." "He is already saddling," Matthew said. "I told him on the way in." They returned to Blue Roan by wagon with the deputy riding beside them. Matthew rode a fresh horse from the livery. Lenora carried certified copies, not originals. Her return ticket remained locked in her boarding house trunk. The road took nearly 3 hours under a north wind. No one wasted the journey on reassurance. At Blue Roan, the ranch hands stood behind the barn wall, out of sight from the office window. Eben met them near the kitchen door. "He has gone quiet," the cook said. "That worries me more." The deputy checked his revolver but kept it holstered. "Mr. Beckett, you know the house. Miss Whitcomb, you stay behind us." Lenora answered before Harlan could. "I stay where I can identify what he touches and what he removes. I do not enter first." The deputy considered her. "Fair." Harlan looked toward the office door. "We go through the kitchen. No one fires unless he fires at a person." It was the first order he gave, and it concerned restraint. Inside, broken glass glittered beneath the office window. A chair had been wedged under the door handle from the other side, but the upper panel had split. The deputy called through it. "Vernon Dake, county deputy. Put down the weapon and open the door." No answer. "We know you are inside." A drawer scraped. Lenora heard papers slide across the floor. Harlan's jaw tightened. "He is looking for the freight envelope." "Let him," she said. "He cannot find what is not here." The deputy struck the cracked panel with his boot. The wood gave. He reached through, lifted the chair away, and opened the door. Vernon stood beside the desk with the Blue Roan ledger in one hand and a revolver lying on the blotter within reach. Papers covered the floor. "Where is the receipt?" he demanded. Lenora remained behind the deputy's shoulder. "With the county clerk." Vernon's face changed. The answer destroyed the purpose of the room around him. "You took it. I preserved it. You think a clerk's seal makes a lie true? No, it makes tampering harder." The deputy stepped forward. "Move away from the weapon." Vernon hurled the ledger at Harlan. Harlan raised his right arm to block it. The book struck his forearm, and Vernon lunged for the window. Harlan caught the back of his coat. Vernon twisted and drove his shoulder into Harlan's chest. Harlan struck the desk edge hard enough to drop to one knee. His right arm folded against his side. The deputy grabbed Vernon's sleeve, but Vernon tore free, crashed through the damaged window, and ran for the horse line. Outside, a horse screamed. Hoofbeats broke across the frozen yard. One of the hands started after him. "Stop!" Harlan called, trying to rise. Lenora reached him first. "Do not follow. He is getting away." Pain had drained the color from his face. "The deputy has seen him. The evidence is safe. Chasing an armed man into winterbrush proves nothing." Harlan looked toward the shattered window, then at the papers across the floor, his breathing steadied by force. "You are right." The deputy swore under his breath but did not fire after Vernon. Matthew and Eben entered when called. Lenora checked the ledger. Its leather cover bore a fresh gouge, but the pages remained intact. Nothing central was missing. The deputy recorded the broken window, the fired bullet in the ceiling, the forced desk, the scattered papers, and each witness statement. Before nightfall, he rode back to Cinder Mesa with sworn accounts from Harlan, Matthew, Eben, and Lenora. A justice of the peace accepted the complaint for unlawful entry, armed intimidation, and attempted theft, then issued a warrant. Eben bound Harlan's right shoulder near the stove. The injury was a deep bruise and strain, not a break, but he could not raise the arm without pain. Lenora placed the certified stage entry, freight copy, and merchant statement in order inside her pouch. "The creditor review is in 6 days," Harlan said. "Can you prove enough?" "I can prove what he did." She closed the pouch, "And I can prove what I refuse to invent." Outside, riders carried the warrant north. Vernon had failed to reach the evidence. Now the only thing left was whether the truth, kept narrow and exact, could save Blue Roan before his lies reached the bank first. 6 days later, Harlan's right shoulder was still bound beneath his coat when he and Lenora entered the private office above the Trinidad feed house. He could lift the arm enough to remove his hat, but not without tightening his mouth. Lenora carried the document pouch herself. Inside were certified copies of the freight entry, the Cinder Mesa, merchant statement, the stagebook page, her dated account of the Relief Hall confrontation, and the selected letters Vernon had written to her. The eastbound ticket rested in the inner pocket of the same pouch. Harlan had not touched it since placing it on Mrs. Keene's parlor table. The bank representative sat behind a broad desk, with the feed house manager at his right and the Cinder Mesa merchant at his left. The railway freight agent occupied a chair near the stove. No sheriff stood inside, no judge presided. This room existed for one question only: whether Blue Roan had honestly received the hay charged to its account, and whether its winter credit should remain suspended. Miss Whitcomb prepared the account sequence. Harlan said before anyone could direct the first question to him. "She will present it." The bank representative adjusted his spectacles. "You understand, Miss Whitcomb, that this is not a court proceeding." "I do." "Then confine yourself to the commercial facts. That is all I intend to use." The county clerk entered carrying a sealed envelope and his custody book. He stated the date receipt 417 had been deposited, the condition of the Blue Roan seal when it arrived, and the names of those present when he opened and resealed it. He placed the county envelope on the desk but did not break the seal yet. Lenora began with Vernon's letters. She read only the marked lines describing Blue Roan as his ranch, and instructing her to arrange household and feed accounts before any creditor saw them. "What does that prove?" the bank representative asked. "It proves he used Blue Roan's identity in correspondence and wanted my skill applied to accounts before creditor review." "Does it prove he intended you to falsify those accounts?" "No." The merchant glanced at her, surprised by the refusal. Lenora continued. "It supports that inference. It does not establish the future act." She placed the certified copy of page 212 beside the letters. "This is the Cinder Mesa stage booking folio entry made before my arrival. It names Blue Roan as my destination, instructs the driver to ask for Vernon Dake, and lists Harlan Beckett's gate marks, well, cottonwood and blue porch rail." The bank representative read it. "Who certified this?" "Mr. Pollard, custodian of the original folio. The original remains locked at the stage office, and Mr. Dake attempted to remove it. Mr. Pollard states that Vernon offered $5 for the page after learning the route entry still existed." The feed house manager leaned forward. "That proves he sent you to Blue Roan. It does not prove he took our hay." "No," Lenora said. "The freight record addresses that." The railway agent opened the December register to entry 417. The book recorded 2 wagon loads of baled hay charged to Blue Roan Ranch and collected by Vernon Dake. There was no written authority attached. "Would your office normally release goods under another ranch's account without authorization?" the bank representative asked. "No," the agent said. The clerk accepted Dake's possession of the order number and his claim that the arrangement was known. The merchant shifted in his chair. Lenora placed his signed statement on the desk. The order number came from Cinder Mesa. Vernon saw it while the Blue Roan account was being totaled. The merchant cleared his throat. He stood near the book. I should have required Mr. Beckett's confirmation before treating him as connected to the order. Did Mr. Beckett ever authorize Vernon in your presence? The feed house manager asked. No. Did Vernon later ask whether Blue Roan had disputed the charge? Yes. And did you tell him the ranch's credit might be affected? The merchant's face reddened. I told him questions had been raised and that the bank would care if delivery was denied. So he knew the pressure his use of the account would create, Lenora said. That is supported. The records also prove he knew the order number, collected the hay, and lacked authority. The clerk broke the county seal and placed receipt 417 beneath a glass weight. The railway stamp, date, Blue Roan charge, and signature were all visible. The agent compared it to the register. The merchant compared the amount to his account statement. Harlan remained silent until the bank representative addressed him. Did you receive these 2 wagon loads? No. Did any Blue Roan employee receive them? No. Did you owe Vernon Dake wages or goods? No. Matthew Rourke witnessed his final payment when I dismissed him. Why did you dismiss him? A silver bit was found in his bedroll. Did you warn the merchant afterward? No. Harlan's answer came without excuse. I believed removing him from Blue Roan ended the danger. That failure belongs to me. The merchant looked down at the signed statement before him. The bank representative reviewed the papers in order. False ranch identity, deliberate stage routing, access to the order number, freight collection without authority, advance knowledge of the resulting dispute, attempt to buy the stagebook page, break in at Blue Roan while demanding the receipt. The bank will lift the suspension on Blue Roan's winter credit provisionally, he said at last. Final confirmation will follow when the feed house corrects the charge. The feed house manager turned toward the merchant. Your account will absorb a portion of the loss for failure to verify the agent. Recovery from Vernon Dake may be pursued separately. The merchant's jaw tightened, but he nodded. Harlan released one measured breath. Lenora did not mistake the decision for complete victory. Blue Roan still owed ordinary winter debt. Hay still had to be found or replaced. Vernon had not vanished because one room accepted the record. But the ranch would not be forced into a breeding stock sale, merely to survive a false charge. The county clerk returned receipt 417 to its envelope and resealed it. Lenora signed the custody book again. Then she gathered every copy into her pouch. The commercial review is concluded, the bank representative said. Any criminal matter belongs elsewhere. It already does, Lenora replied. Down the corridor, a justice of the peace had prepared a smaller room for sworn statements. Vernon waited there in the custody of the county sheriff, arrested 2 days earlier at Bitter Wash under the warrant issued after the Blue Roan break-in. His dark coat had lost its careful brushing. He wore no restraints at the table, but a deputy stood behind his chair. The justice explained the purpose plainly. Statements would be taken regarding unlawful entry, attempted theft, false representation, and unauthorized collection. No verdict would be reached that day. Existing custody remained based on the break-in warrant until bond was considered. Pollard's sworn statement had been sent from Cinder Mesa. Matthews and Eben's accounts of the office intrusion had been copied before the local justice. The railway agent and merchant were present to state what they personally knew. Lenora took the oath first. She gave the sequence without embellishment. Vernon's false description of Blue Roan, the stage directions, receipt 417, the freight register, the merchant's order number, Vernon's attempt to buy page 212, his armed entry into the ranch office and demand for the receipt. You came west to marry me, Vernon said when the justice allowed him to question the statement. I came west to meet the man described in your letters. You stayed with Beckett instead. During a storm in a locked room, then you took his wages for work performed. And now you expect these men to believe you are not choosing one rancher over another. Lenora kept her hands flat on the table. My choice of employer does not change the freight register. Vernon turned toward the justice. She has every reason to invent this. Beckett wants her. The justice looked at Harlan. Mr. Beckett, what is your present relationship to Miss Whitcomb? Harlan stood slowly, protecting his right shoulder. She is employed under written terms to examine Blue Roan's records. Does she live at your ranch? She has paid lodging in Cinder Mesa. When work requires an overnight stay, she uses a separate locked room and I sleep in the bunkhouse. Is there a promise of marriage between you? Harlan's gaze went to Lenora before he answered, not for permission to claim her, to make certain she heard the answer directly. No. Vernon smiled. Yet you want her. Harlan did not look away from Lenora. What I want is not evidence. The room held the sentence without ornament. Then he faced the justice again. Miss Whitcomb has an eastbound ticket in her own possession. She owes me no residence, gratitude, courtship, or testimony. If she leaves Colorado tomorrow, every fact she stated remains true. Vernon's smile disappeared. You expect anyone to believe you paid for her freedom. I paid to correct a wrong I made. And what wrong was that? I spoke for her when I had no right. Lenora felt no need to protect him from the admission. Accountability worked only when it remained visible. The justice turned back to Vernon. Did you collect the Blue Roan hay? I collected what the ranch owed me. The answer entered the record before he recognized the damage. You were paid in full, Harlan said. Matthew Rourke witnessed it. Vernon leaned forward. You threw me out over a bit worth less than a week's wages. I returned every dollar earned. Then the hay was settlement for the way you treated me. The justice lifted a hand. That is enough. Vernon had not confessed to every intention Lenora suspected. He had done something more useful. He had admitted collection while claiming a debt already disproved by witness. The merchant gave his statement next. The railway agent followed. The justice entered additional complaints concerning unauthorized collection and false representation. Vernon would remain in custody on the existing warrant until bond was set, with the new complaints added to the record. As the sheriff led him toward the door, Vernon looked at Lenora. You think Beckett made you free because he bought a ticket? Lenora touched the document pouch at her side. No, the ticket only proves he knows the difference between a door and a cage. Vernon was taken away. There was no applause. The justice signed papers. The clerk resealed receipt 417. Pens scratched across official books, while a railway whistle sounded beyond the windows. Outside, winter light lay pale across the station platform. Harlan stood beside Lenora, his injured arm close to his body. He did not reach for her pouch. Lenora opened it herself and removed the cream ticket envelope. The eastbound train would leave the next morning. Blue Roan's credit was open again. Her investigation no longer stood between the ranch and immediate ruin. Nothing practical required her to remain. She held the ticket between them. What happens to Blue Roan if I leave? It survives. And what happens to you? Harlan's gaze moved toward the rails running east beneath a skin of ice. That is not a debt you have to pay. That is not a debt you have to pay, Harlan said. Lenora turned the cream ticket envelope over in her hands. Beyond the platform, the eastbound rails ran beneath a skin of ice toward every life she had already lost and every life she might still build. The station clock marked 4:30. A porter rolled an empty baggage cart beneath the awning. Steam drifted from a locomotive on the far track, then vanished into the cold. You keep answering the question I am not asking, she said. Harlan's injured shoulder remained stiff beneath his coat. Then I am still making the same mistake. Yes. He accepted the judgment without defending himself. Ask the question you mean. Lenora stepped closer, though not close enough to touch him. What do you want if I am free to refuse it? He looked toward the ticket, then back at her. I want you at Blue Roan. As a bookkeeper? Yes, only that? No. His answer came slowly, stripped of any hope that eloquence might persuade her. I want your figures beside mine. I want your name on the orders that affect the ranch. I want to hear you argue with Matthew when he believes experience excuses a poor count. I want to come through the door and know you are there because you chose to be. Lenora held the envelope against her palm. And if I board tomorrow, I take you to the train. Then what? I go home. His mouth tightened once. Blue Roan survives. I do the work. I remember that wanting a woman does not give me a right to keep her. Would you follow me east? Not unless you asked. Would you write? Once. What would you say? That the front room remains yours if you ever need it. Not because you owe me a return. Because I gave you my word." The railway bell sounded from the end of the platform. Lenora looked down the track. The ticket was real. She could leave in the morning with money earned under her own name, independent lodging paid through the month, and no legal or moral claim tying her to Colorado. The freedom remained even while she considered staying. That was why the answer could finally belong to her. "My first employment term has nearly ended," she said. "I know. The bank no longer requires me to save Blue Roan from immediate ruin. No. Then if I return, the terms change." Harlan straightened as much as his shoulder allowed. "Name them." "A monthly wage. Authority to examine every merchant account connected to feed, freight, and winter supply. No large purchase without both signatures." "Agreed." "The boarding house room remains mine until I decide otherwise." "Agreed. If weather requires me to stay at Blue Roan, the front room remains mine and the lock remains on the inside." "Agreed." "You remain in the bunkhouse." "Yes, and work is not courtship." A pulse moved once in his throat. "Understood. You agree very easily. I have learned that fair terms do not improve when a man resists them." That earned the smallest curve of her mouth. Harlan saw it but did not step closer. Lenora slipped the ticket back into the document pouch. "I am not boarding tomorrow." Hope crossed his face with such restraint that it hurt more than triumph would have. "Where are you going?" "Back to Cinder Mesa. My trunk and room are there. Then I will return to Blue Roan for the work." "And afterward?" "Afterward depends on what you do." He nodded. "Fair." They took the northbound stage the next morning. Harlan's shoulder prevented him from lifting her valise, so he hired a porter in Trinidad and let the stage driver handle the heavier cases without apology. When they reached Cinder Mesa, Lenora returned to Mrs. Keene's front room. The ticket went into her locked trunk. The employment agreement remained in her purse. Harlan stayed above the livery. Nothing about the journey north became an assumption. For the next 2 weeks, Lenora traveled to Blue Roan by wagon or horseback when the road permitted. Some evenings she returned to Cinder Mesa before dark. On nights when weather turned, she used the front room and locked the door from inside. Harlan slept in the bunkhouse. No one called it courtship. The ranch adjusted to her authority, one decision at a time. When Matthew disputed a new inventory mark, Harlan told him, "Argue the count with Miss Whitcomb. Do not come to me for a different answer." When the Cinder Mesa merchant added an unexplained handling fee to the corrected feed account, Harlan brought the invoice to Lenora unopened. "Your work," he said. When she rejected the charge, he signed beneath her notation rather than settling privately. The bank's final confirmation arrived near the end of January. It was addressed to Miss Lenora Whitcomb, accounts, Blue Roan Ranch. Harlan placed the envelope on her desk without opening it. "It concerns your credit," she said. "It concerns your work. You own the ranch. You corrected the record." She broke the seal herself. The bank confirmed that Blue Roan's ordinary winter line had been restored, and the disputed freight charge removed pending recovery from Vernon and the merchant. Lenora filed the notice under her name. Harlan's shoulder improved in visible stages. At first he lifted coffee with his left hand. Then he stopped wearing the binding beneath his coat. By the first week of February, he could saddle his own horse, though reaching high still tightened his jaw. Lenora noticed because she had learned the difference between watching a man and waiting for him to fail. She did not fuss over him. She moved the office lamp lower so he would not have to reach above the desk. He understood the kindness and did not expose it by thanking her. On February 10th, Lenora balanced the corrected winter accounts. Every feed purchase had a receiving name. Every freight charge had a matched paper. Blue Roan would reach spring without selling breeding stock. She closed the ledger and found Harlan standing at the office doorway. The repaired window admitted a pale band of afternoon light. He had knocked even though the door stood partly open. "May I come in?" he asked. He entered and stopped near the second chair. The feedhouse manager sent word. He accepted the final correction. The bank notice already anticipated it. "Then the work that brought you back is finished." Lenora rested one hand on the closed ledger. "Is that why you came?" "Partly." He did not sit. "You said work was not courtship." "It is not." "You said afterward depended on what I did." Yes, I have tried to do what I promised. You have, the answer did not relieve him. I want to ask whether work may become courtship. Lenora studied him. Define courtship. I come through Mrs. Keene's front door when I call. She knows why I am there. I ask before taking your time. You may end it without losing wages, work, room, or respect at Blue Roan. Marriage? Not a condition. A hope? Yes. He held the word without trying to make it harmless. A strong one. Lenora rose and came around the desk. You once told a room where I was staying as if the answer belonged to you. I did. You repaired the harm as far as you could. I tried. You gave me a road east. Yes. You gave me work that did not require affection. Yes. You stood behind me when the truth needed my voice, not yours. Harlan's breath moved slowly beneath his coat. I should have done that from the beginning. You learned. I am still learning. Lenora stopped one pace from him. The compass rested against her wrist on the harness lace he had cut and returned weeks earlier. Then you may court me. Relief passed through him before joy, quiet and almost painful. He did not reach for her. May I kiss you? The question contained every locked door he had respected and every open road he had paid to preserve. Lenora stepped closer. Yes. Harlan touched her face with his left hand, mindful of the shoulder not yet fully healed. The kiss was brief and warm. A promise offered, not collected. When he drew back, he did not ask whether she would remain forever. I will take you to Cinder Mesa before the road freezes, he said. Lenora glanced toward the window. The winter sky had cleared, and the wagon track beyond the porch ran dark against the snow. Not tonight. Harlan waited. The front room, he asked. The front room. And the lock. Still on the inside. Always. Lenora rested her hand against the repaired compass. I am not staying because the storm closed the road. Harlan's eyes remained on hers. Why are you staying? Because the road is open. She took his hand. And this time I choose the direction. By the end of February, Lenora had put her decision into writing before she allowed anyone to call it devotion. The new agreement did not mention courtship. It named her wage, her authority over freight and feed accounts, the purchases requiring both signatures, and the share of savings earned through the systems she had established. Harlan read every line at the office desk, then stopped at the clause, preserving her position if either of them ended the courtship. You expect trouble, he said. I expect agreements to survive disappointment. Fair, he signed beneath her name. Only after the ink dried did Lenora let him walk her through Mrs. Keene's front door on Sunday afternoons with flowers or a new book beneath his arm. He never arrived without asking whether she had time. He never entered her room. When she stayed overnight at Blue Roan because of weather, the front room lock remained on the inside, and Harlan slept in the bunkhouse. Courtship altered their attention, not her security. Spring softened the road slowly. Snow withdrew from the south slopes first, leaving brown grass, black mud, and fence posts tilted by frost. Harlan's shoulder regained its strength, with the same patience he had been forced to learn elsewhere. By March he could lift a saddle without favoring the right arm, though cold rain sometimes left it stiff. Lenora noticed and moved heavy account boxes before he came into the office. He noticed and did not insult the kindness by pretending not to need it. The feed house completed its correction in writing. Blue Roan's December charge was removed, and the merchant in Cinder Mesa accepted a share of the loss for releasing account information and failing to verify Vernon's authority. The missing hay was never recovered intact. Some had been fed at Bitter Wash, according to wagon marks, and the remains of Blue Roan's merchant twine, found there after the sheriff searched the property under lawful authority. The rest had been traded away. Vernon's county case moved more slowly than anger preferred and more firmly than rumor. The break-in, the fired shot, the attempt to take the receipt, and the unauthorized freight collection were entered separately. He was ordered to make restitution and received a jail sentence for the unlawful entry. Bitterwash did not become Harlan's. No land changed hands as a romantic reward. Responsibility merely settled where it belonged. Receipt 417 remained with the county record until the proceedings ended. Lenora never asked to keep it. Proof was not a keepsake. It had served its purpose. The stage booking folio remained locked in Pollard's iron cabinet in Cinder Mesa. Lenora created a new route card for future drivers, drawn with plain landmarks and no borrowed ownership. Blue Roan Ranch, Bitterwash Homestead, Cinder Mesa, road south to Trinidad. Pollard placed a copy beside page 212, rather than removing the old entry. One shows the lie, he said. The other keeps it from happening again. In March, the station agent in Trinidad allowed Lenora a partial refund on the unused eastbound ticket, less the cancellation charge. She used the money to buy a sturdy writing desk with 2 deep drawers and a lock of her own. Harlan offered to pay the freight. "No," she said. "Then may I help carry it? When your shoulder is ready." "It is ready." Matthew carries the other side. He accepted the condition. The desk went beneath the east window of Blue Roan's front room, where morning light reached the account books without striking the ink bottle. The room remained hers until she chose otherwise. She did not choose otherwise because Harlan asked. She chose after weeks in which he knocked on the closed door, waited for an answer, and treated every boundary as ordinary, rather than temporary. They became engaged near the end of March. Harlan did not hide a ring inside an invoice or turn a ranch meeting into a proposal. He asked her on the Blue Roan porch after supper, with the road open behind her and her compass warm beneath her glove. "I want a life with you," he said. "Not your labor as payment. Not your gratitude for the storm, you." Lenora asked the question that mattered. "What happens to my work if I say no?" "It remains yours, and if I say yes?" "It remains yours." Then she answered him. They married in April before a justice of the peace in the Blue Roan parlor. Mrs. Keene stood with Lenora. Matthew stood with Harlan. Eben wore a coat that smelled faintly of wood smoke and complained that lawful ceremonies took too long when supper was cooling. The sandy-haired hand brought early wildflowers in a tin cup and turned red when Lenora thanked him. No crowd filled the house. No one called the marriage inevitable. Harlan spoke his promise, without claiming what weather had once placed at his door. Lenora spoke hers, without surrendering the road that could carry her away. After the ceremony, she entered the justice fee under household legal expenses. Harlan found the line that evening. "That is a cold description of our wedding. The flowers are listed under household comfort." Better. Eben's supper cost more than the justice. That sounds like Eben. Their marriage did not erase the habits that had earned it. Purchases above the agreed amount still required both signatures. Lenora kept wages and savings in her own bank envelope. Harlan knocked when the office door was closed. When they disagreed, neither treated marriage as a deciding vote. Blue Roan did not become wealthy by spring. It needed fence posts, harness repair, and a new roof over the north feed shed. 3 cows sickened during the same wet week. Yet the herd had survived winter without the forced sale Harlan feared, and every new freight order carried a receiving name before payment was entered. Near the end of May, a wagon rolled through the Blue Roan gate, carrying the first large hay delivery since the disputed shipment. Lenora heard the wheels from the office and reached the yard before Harlan called. Matthew counted the bales while the driver waited beside the wagon. 78, Matthew said. 78, the driver confirmed. Lenora checked the order number, freight notation, collector's name, and merchant mark. Then she handed the receiving paper to Harlan. He read it and signed. "Your turn," he said. Lenora signed beside him. Neither signature made the other unnecessary. When the final bale had been stacked in the dry section of the north shed, she returned to the front room. 2 desks stood beneath the windows now, hers facing east and Harlan's angled toward the door. The Blue Roan ledger lay open between them, useful and ordinary. Above the coat hooks hung the corrected route map. Harlan entered carrying 2 cups of coffee. The door stood open, so he did not knock. He placed her cup beside her left hand where she preferred it. "The count matched," he said. "I was present. I thought you might enjoy hearing it again." Lenora removed the brass compass from her wrist. The harness leather Harlan had cut in December had darkened with use but remained strong. She placed the compass against the route map, just beneath the marked road to Blue Roan. The needle steadied beneath the glass. "Still points north," Harlan said. "It always did, even when the directions were false." Lenora touched the line leading from Cinder Mesa to the blue-marked ranch. A compass can tell a person where north lies. It cannot tell who is telling the truth. Harlan set his cup down. Where are you standing now? Through the open doorway, the road curved beyond the blue rail, dry beneath the May sun. Nothing blocked it. No storm pressed her toward the house. No promise trapped her inside it. Lenora rested her fingers over the brass case and looked at the man who had learned that love was not a closed door. "Home," she said. The compass needle pointed north. The map told the truth, and the road remained open.